Hello, Morim here. In today's video I will be sharing my Bardadin build in Baldur's Gate 3 that utilizes your vocal cords to smite enemies with the Gospel of Holy Light. Slaying enemies has never been this easy. Levels in Bard supplies with a ton of spell slots, which we can use to pump out the word of God, frying the microbrains of zombies and fiends alike. Or we can utilize those spell slots to cast powerful spells that bring foes in line, allowing for some devastating combos. But we can do even more with the tools the sword bards provide us. Namely buffing our AC to insane levels or utilizing ranged weapons without the need for cantrips. And combat is not the only thing this class excels at. The other one is social interactions based on our high charisma score and plethora of proficiencies that are offered to us. Now with the introduction of the build out of the way, let's have a look at the starting ability score as well as level progression. For the ability score we are going with a 17, 8, 14, 8, 10 and 16 lineup. Now this build is based on strength. This one is where our mobility comes from, meaning we can jump to enemies with our bonus action to get in their face. However, you can also go with dexterity as your stat, which is much better early on since we are going to use medium armor at first and transition to heavy armor later. The only difference here is you're going to take out the 17 points in strength and put them into dexterity with the 2 class bonus right here. As for the skill proficiencies, go with athletics and intimidation. Your background can go any way you want. I personally have a persuasion background and insight background because those two are quite valuable, especially during dialogue and exploring the world. For the oath, we are going with the Oath of Vengeance. We are only going to put 2 points into the Paladin, not 3. So the only benefit we are going to have is the action we get right here. This one is Inquisition Smite. So we can use this one as a bonus action and it will add our charisma bonus as radiant damage to our attacks. Dazing enemies will lower their armor value, they cannot take reactions and they have disadvantage on wisdom saving throws, all of which are neat little bony. I personally found the Oath of Vengeance to be much easier to maintain than any other, but you can technically also go with the Oath of Devotion. This one provides us with Holy Rebuke, which gives us retaliation damage and all our allies that are affected by it, but I personally really like the Inquisition Smite. And Paladins also get Lay on Hands, which can be used to heal yourself. As for their proficiencies, we get access to heavy armor proficiency as well as martial weapons proficiency. And something that this class also gets access to is Divine Sense. We gain advantage on attack rolls against Celestials, Fiends and Undead. Enemies of the type will be much easier to hit. You can use this as a bonus action. For the second level, we are going with Paladin. Something that you need to know, we are going to delay our extra attack by 3 whooping levels, because we take 2 levels in Paladins first, and Bards get their extra attack at level 6, not level 5, so it's 3 extra levels. That's a lot of power we are not getting early on, but I personally think it's worth it, since we are getting Smite, since we are getting all the Paladin spells we are seeing right here, so we can prepare those whenever we want. Really good ones are Command, since we get a CC ability, especially very early on. Thunderous Smite for thunder damage and we can knock enemies prone. Searing Smite for fire damage. Wrathful Smite for psychic damage and the possibility to frighten enemies. Frighten is an exceptionally powerful CC. Targets cannot move, they also have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls. And we also get access to Bless. For the fighting style we have multiple options. I personally prefer the Ammo class because we are going to utilize 2 one-handed weapons. Early on you can use a 2-handed weapon, but later on, once we get to the sword part, we're going to utilize 2 swords. Now, the third level is not going to be Paladin, despite it being very tempting. We're going to go into Bard. With the Bard we're going to pick up 2 cantrips, Dancing Lights and Light. If you do have a race that has dark vision, I would highly recommend to go with Blade Ward and Vicious Mockery, but since we are not, we're going with those 2. Now speaking of races, a quick comment, since people do ask me, I personally do not recommend you any. You can however pick a better one than the Dragonborn. Half-Orcs are very good, especially since we're going to play on crits, and Wood Elves also are very good, providing us with a stealth proficiency and additional movement speed. As for the spells we're going to be casting, Healing Word can be very powerful, especially since you can cast it at range. You're going to be melee, so having that option is really good. Verifier will provide you with something that applies advantage to your attack rolls if the enemy does not succeed the saving throw. Your allies can also be affected by this. Dissonant Whispers can frighten enemies, and frighten is, as already explained, a very powerful CC, and you will be able to cast this one at 80-meter range, and it will deal a substantial amount of psychic damage. And for the last one, something to increase your mobility, since we are going to lag mobility. You can prepare this one before a fight, you will use a spare slot, but it's quite nice to have if you know you're going to run around a lot. Starting instrument is your choice. I prefer the Lyre. And we can also pick a proficiency. If you do not have anyone that's going to be proficient in sleight of hand, you can go with that. It's going to add just a little bit. Later on you will find gloves, which give you 18 dexterity as well as +1 attack. With this one, you can get this one to a high number, which will be very, very nice to have. I personally do not recommend that approach. Go for someone that's dedicated to sleight of hand, not with this class, because this class is going to be much better used with deception or performance. I personally prefer deception. It's more common in dialogue, so go with that. You're also a righteous bard. It doesn't fit the class, it doesn't fit the playstyle to steal stuff. At the next level, which is level 4, we get Jack of all trades. We get half our proficiency bonus rounded down, so 3 becomes 1 to all our ability checks that are not proficient in. So quite a substantial boost here. We also get Song of Rest, which functions basically as a short rest. Now, using this one as a short rest, we don't regenerate any spell slots. However, it's still nice to have for someone like a fighter that regenerates action surge, or a warlock that regenerates its spell slots on a short rest. As for the spell we are going to pick, Featherfall is nice to have since we're going to jump into high places and we need to get down. If you're low on health and don't have any ways to heal yourself, you can cast Featherfall on yourself and then jump down. It's also great utility. At the next level, level 3 or level 5 total of our character, we are getting access to the specialization of the subclass of the Bard. And we are going with the College of Swords. The College of Swords will give us 6 actions we can use. You will get a slashing, defensive and mobile move with melee options and ranged options. The one you're going to use all the time in the melee range is going to be the defensive flourish. It's giving you 4 additional armor class for 1 turn. This means when you get into a fight and use this one, you're basically at 24, 25, 26 armor class and are much less likely to be hit. Mobile flourish is also nice if you want to kick someone into a chasm or down a cliff, and you can teleport afterwards. So it's giving you additional mobility. Slashing flourish is not going to double the attack. You can possibly hit multiple enemies, but it's not that useful. The better option for this type of attack is going to be ranged, because you can target multiple targets or the same target 2 times. So this is going to be your go-to option if you need to deal range damage. For the spell, we're going with Hold Person. Hold Person will bind the humanoid enemy. They cannot move or react or act. And if we attack them, they get critically struck. Now, if we critically strike, we get to cast our Smite as an additional action, which is really powerful. It doesn't specify that we need to use our main action. So that's why we are going to wield 2 swords, because we can use our bonus action to strike them critically and then we can smite again. So we have possibly 2 critical strikes to cast 2 smites. And we're going with 2 weapon fighting, because we can add our strength modifier afterwards to the damage of our offhand. So it's not 1d6, but 1d6 plus our strength modifier. At level 4 we get another cantrip. We go with Blade Ward. It's going to give us resistance to bludgeoning damage, piercing damage and slashing damage for 2 turns. Now for the ability we are going with Invisibility. Invisibility is just always good and you can sneak by enemies with this one very easily. As for the feat, we need something with 1 strength. So we have 2 options here. One is Athlete, which will increase our jump distance by 50%. Jump is based on the strength modifier, so having 50% more will be really, really good. And we can increase our strength by 1, or we can go with Heavy Armor Master. Will give us 1 strength, so we are up to 18, and we get 3 damage less by non-magical attacks. This one will fall off later on. So I personally would highly recommend going with Athlete, since that's going to be our mobility. Get 1 point here, and this +1 will give us a ton of benefits. With our Bard level 5, we can actually unlock level 3 spells, which we will use to unlock Fear. Fear will provide us with the Fearful condition. This one is basically an upgraded version of Frightened. At this level, we are also getting improved Bardic Inspiration, so when one of our characters, basically our sleight of hand slave or someone that's checking Arcana checks, we can improve their roll by 1d8 at this point instead of a 1d6. And our Bardic Inspiration now restores after a long or short rest. Our Flourish abilities will use your Bardic Inspiration. So that's a really nice benefit. Something of note is your Paladin levels and your Bard levels get added to a level 8 character, which will now unlock level 4 spell slots despite us not being able to use them since we don't have any spells here. We're going to learn Glyph of Warding at tier 3. But that one slot is going to still be utilized by us, since we can use it to upgrade our Smite. And we also get, finally, our extra attack. This will be game changing. Remember, we delayed our extra attack for 3 levels. So having it now will give you a massive boost in power. At level 7 we get another spell slot, a level 4 spell slot. And we can now learn a level 4 spell. For this one we are going to pick Polymorph. Polymorph is a very strong CC ability. We can also pick Dimension Door to provide us with another way to obtain mobility. But we are most likely never going to use those spells, since we are going to use those spell slots to smite much harder. Now all other levels are going to go into the Bard. We are staying at the level 2 Paladin and you are going to reach a level 10 Bard. This will give you access to more spell slots and a few more spells. However, the build at this point is basically finished. Level 8 is somewhere you're going to really come online. Now the feat you're going to pick at Bard level 8 is going to be a +2 to our strength score. Later in the game you have 2 options. You can either respec to dexterity and save on your strength, so dump your strength, and equip gloves that will provide you with 23 strength, or you can use early on gloves of dexterity, which will bump up our dexterity score to 18. So instead of 8, we are having 18, and our attack is going to increase by 1. We can find quite powerful hand crossbows, which we can dual wield, and those scale with dexterity. So our ranged option is tied to those gloves. The near misser is, for example, a force crossbow. Now this force crossbow will basically deal true damage to stone or doors or basically anything you damage. So heavy sturdy or sturdy is not going to stop you. You don't need to pick locks, you can just crash the door. But this requires those gloves or a respect to dexterity. Like I said, let's discuss this again. Your ranged options will be much better with dexterity. However, your mobility will suffer because our jump is tied to our strength. So we cannot jump as far as this if we do not spec into strength. Your carry capacity is also tied to your strength. So you're not going to hoard as much loot. So it's your decision. Do you want to be more mobile and focus more on the melee playstyle, or do you want to also enable your ranged options a little bit earlier? So that's what the split is about. If you're going dexterity, you can use medium armor instead of heavy armor, but I personally prefer heavy armor. Now another good option for this type of class is going to be Karlach, because Karlach gets haste, SSREL Thiefling. So we get Legacy of Avernus, Searing Smite, Legacy of Avernus, Branding Smite, and haste. So you get additional smites and additional haste. This one is quite substantial, so if you do not want to use your main character as this one, Karlach is a very good option. Now some more comments on the equipment. You can find very good swords in the game. Currently, Knife of the Undermountain King can be found in the Crash at the Quartermaster, and Sword of Lifestealing can be found at Dammon in the Last Light Inn. Now both of those provide you with a +2, but more importantly they both have on crit effects. This one is going to provide you with a better crit chance, and this one is going to provide you with more damage on a crit. I prefer it like this, so my main hand with the additional crit chance. So instead of a 5% one we have a 10% one. We can now use our Divine Smite at any level. It's going to increase the damage quite substantially. It's 1d8 additionally. And we can smite a target for quite a lot of damage. Now if this one crits, we can now activate a reaction, so Divine Smite on critical strikes, which will deal another Divine Smite if we choose this option. We can target the level. Anyway, this sums up the build guide. Make sure to leave a like, comment if you have any questions or regards, and subscribe if you haven't already. You can also join the channel membership or leave a donation if you have the spare coin. See you next time and bye.